there, warm welcome to the home of independent, fearless and credible journalism here on Joy News Prime tonight. Joy News investigations uncover persons suspected to have contracted COVID-19 are being held on the same floor as other patients, including pregnant women.
What is the worst? We receive normal cases. In the east is where we have the suspected cases. It is very dangerous. But what can we say?
On the vetting of Minister-designate for Employment and Labour Relations, how many jobs have been created by the current government?
The last time we reported on was in September 2020, and then the figure was around 3 million jobs. 3 million.
What is the proof of this claim?
Make the details available to the committee when I get back to you.
Details of that coming up shortly. Also in business, government makes progress with moves to lift ban on employment to the Gulf states. We'll hear from the employment minister-designate, who also revealed today that, as you heard there, 3 million jobs were created in 2020. And later in the bulletin, are you ready to pay high road tolls for better roads?
It's right for him to increase because we still have potholes on these routes.
What will the increase add to the existing road? Add any figures to it as to how much it's going to cost us, and then the increase, and then how long will it be? So I think they have to revisit it.
These and many more coming up in the next 2 hours with me, Gifty Ando, up here. Let's begin with Parliament, where the Minister-designate for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Baffour-Ewuah, took his turn at the Appointments Committee. He told the committee that the current administration created 3 million jobs in its first term. The nominee, who failed to provide evidence to support his claim, however, assured members of the vetting committee he will supply them with a comprehensive data on the creation of the 3 million jobs by close of day.
The government of Nana Addo Akufo-Addo had created approximately 1 million jobs. And even though I don't have the exact figures for end of 2020, the last time we reported on was in September 2020, and then the figure was around 3 million jobs. 3 million jobs. Yes.
How was the 3 million jobs created, and the distribution? You want to share the statistics with us, sector by sector?
I will make the details available to the committee when I get back to you. But I think that I have, on a number of occasions, even come to this house and have given these figures out already. But if still it is the pleasure of the committee to have the details, I'm more than willing to.
And Chairman, another clarification: the 3 million jobs, public sector or private sector, or a combination of the two?
Combination of all.
The nominee said in September the government has created 3 million jobs. On 13th August, the Vice President also said that the government has created 2 million jobs. 2 million jobs, 13th August. That was what the Vice President said, that the government has created 2 million jobs. And you're also saying that in September, you have created 3 million jobs. Is it that between August and September, you created additional 1 million jobs?
Well, I don't know. And I'm not aware of what you're talking of, but I have officially turned out the 3 billion jobs, and I will be prepared to defend the 3 million at any point in time, that when I get the opportunity.
Employment and Labour Relations Minister designates the Ignatius Baffour-Ewuah. Now, Minister-designate for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Sarah Adrasafo, is pledging to rebrand witches' camps located mainly in northern Ghana to help fight the menace of women being held in bondage in so-called camps accused of witchcraft. The issue of witches' camps is one that has been extensively covered by Joy News. In this report, we first broadcast in 2020, for example, we highlight the difficulty in integrating these alleged witches.
The Nabuli Witches' Camp. For some, a safe haven where women accused of witchcraft, fleeing persecution, find solace. But for others, this is a dreaded open dungeon where those that are unwelcome in their own homes come to die. This camp has been here for as long as anyone here remembers. Now it is about to shut down. Kuma Awie is one of the last women packing up to leave. Only yesterday, one woman died in this camp. According to the people who knew her, she was well over 100 years old and had been here in this camp for over 30 years. She died of ill health. It is stories like that and many other women who had died in this camp before her that makes that journey of this woman one with mixed feelings. Happy on one hand that she's finally leaving, but also uncertain of the journey that lies ahead. Kuma Awie's story is like that of many who came before her into this camp. Someone in her hometown said she saw her in her sleep trying to cut off her head. That accusation was enough to convict her and force her out of her home and away from her family after hours of beating and torture.
As I'm going home, I am looking forward to the people I know welcome me back home. My stepmother, my grandchildren, my husband, and all the people I used to talk to.
Mma Ble Bala is also leaving the camp, but would not be going back to her home village 18 kilometers away from Nabuli, where she came from 25 years ago. She's choosing instead to live just outside the Nabuli town.
I am not going anywhere. I am happy here. Even in my sickness or death, I will be here. If I die, they can take my remains back home. But as I live, I'd live here.
That's the point that was made in Parliament today. The Dom Kwabena MP, who would be in charge of the ministry responsible for the problem if passed, told Parliament Appointment Committee that she would take a different approach in trying to deal with this problem.
I chanced on some documents which indicated that in Kambaga, which camp, for instance, there are 600 inmates. When they were engaged, only one was prepared to come back home. So I believe that a rebranding of these camps, because as far as the women are concerned, they have found family in these camps. And so I will engage them.
Minister nominee, a rebranding of the camp, which is camp. So your policy will be to rebrand them.
I know that
it has to do with, you have a background in human rights. It has to do with infractions of human rights, that they are being held hostage because of some people's cultural and social beliefs. So when you use the word rebrand, are you going to promote the detention of supposed witches?
Mr. Chair, definitely not. I indicated that attempts to withdraw these women has proven difficult in the past. That is why I believe that another and a novel approach to dealing with the matter would be more prudent. So if they see it as homes, and the ministry supports them with the necessary social amenities that is expected of a state. They are given food, they are put on leave, and they are given clothing. I believe that that negative branding as a witch camp will be taken away. And the women also, I intend to go through with them some education on the need for them to also know that these abuses meted on them are not legal, and they can speak out and report to the police as need be. But I think the approach we've used in the past hasn't worked, and so I will look at a new approach which is more collaborative.
Well, is this plan something that will work? We're joined on Zoom by women's rights activist who has been working on this issue in northern Ghana. Ajia Lamnatu is joining us. Ajia, good evening. Well, I want to find out from you, rebranding, is this new approach by the minister designate, that is feasible from your perspective?
Good evening to you and then to our viewers. I think that we will welcome new approaches, but the issue of rebranding, I really thought that she could go further than, so that we can appreciate what she means by that. Because this is about people's culture. This has to do with long-age cultural issue. I don't know whether the rebranding will have to change the name or it will stop the inflow of people to the camp, or perhaps it will stop witchcraft accusation. Maybe I'm not too sure about that.
The point she made before she said that, the point she made before she said that was the women themselves, in the story that Justice Bedu has done, for example, talk about the difficulties they face going back to their families or to their original communities. It looks like they are happier living there, but the problem is the living conditions there are terrible, and that's why she talks about rebranding and making it more habitable for these people. Does that work for you?
Yes. So you've seen that the issue about the witchcraft accusation is not mainly just about the people in the camp. You appreciate that a lot more violations are going on that are outside the camp. Actually, these women really see the camps as safe haven.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that women do not still want to go back.
Okay.
Now, one thing we need to be clear is that people are doing reintegration with the community of choice. There are a lot of women who say that I want to go back, but probably not from the community in which I was humiliated, in which I was beaten, and probably banished.
Right.
And so we must look at a whole lot of approaches in dealing with this, rather than just focusing on the camp. But then even in the camp, I want to see that there are a lot of social amenities that are not in the camp. We want to see that they are given at least now, so that their life at the camp also can be bearable for them.
Okay.
And then also, the issue of rebranding, let me say that the people in the communities in which these camps are designated do not fear these camps, and these camps are not located in cities. I don't know whether people will leave cities and come and live in these designated camps.
Okay.
Or is the people within the community who they will probably put some things in those areas to attract people to live there.
Very well.
But for me, we will welcome ideas, but then what we need to do is to work outside, even in the camp, to making sure that communities are sensitized about the human rights violations that are associated with witchcraft accusations.
Ajia Lamnatu, thank you so much for your time. It looks like a lot more work, a lot more understanding needs to be given as far as this idea is concerned. Thank you. The Ghana Health Service, in the latest data capturing event on the 13th of February 2021, has recorded 6 more deaths, pushing COVID-19 deaths to 561. The country's active cases is now 7,866. There are 89 people who the service says are suffering severe COVID-19 symptoms, with 26 people said to be in a critical state. We have Dr. Michael Owusu, who is a virologist from KCCR, joining me right now on Zoom. Doc, thank you for your time this evening. Looking at the figures, what options will you recommend as the way forward as far as our fight against COVID-19 is concerned?
Yeah, good evening to you and good evening to your viewers. I mean, the numbers are quite scary, looking at especially the deaths, which almost every day we seem to be having some additions, and it looks as if cumulative death in January and February almost getting to around 200. So if we look at the pattern of the virus, the number of new cases we are getting seem to suggest that the virus is rapidly infecting and expanding in what we call the log phase order of transmission. Ideally, at this phase, we should expect some higher levels of restrictions that will allow for reduction, for movement, I mean, slowing in movement in the way people go by their things. So the president did announce some restrictions in the last address, and I was expecting that it will yield some net positive impact in terms of reduction in these new numbers and deaths. But if we still have these on the rise, then it means that we still have to consider the other options on the table that was mentioned by the president, and possibly trigger some additional restrictions to ease movement. I mean, the virus moves when people move. So if you have a spread of the virus across and deaths increasing, it tells us that people are moving and they may not be adhering and they may not be doing the right thing. And we need some higher form of restrictions to enable us to be able to...
If you just take a look at the numbers, you realize that the active cases have actually gone down based on what we had in the past few weeks. But the number of people who are dying has actually gone up. Shouldn't we begin to fix our attention away from, rather what is happening, post-COVID symptoms, whatever it is that is killing people, rather than, discussing restrictions at this point?
Well, you know that the number of new cases correlates with the active case counts, and this in turn correlates with deaths. Okay. So you cannot separate these three. So as far as you get new cases coming in, your active case count is going to increase. And if that increases, you are going to have deaths. Okay. So if you want to solve active case count problems, then you want to solve transmission problems. And if you're able to cut transmission chains, then you have the chance of reducing hospitalization and therefore death. So the question is, as more people become infected, then of course more people develop complications, even if they recover. So how do we break the transmission in order to reduce spread of this virus? I think this is where the conversation has to be. And I think that we as a people need to do well. We have to ensure that we mask up and do everything that we need to do. But once again, if we are not adhering and people are not doing what is right, then of course some other measures.
And so I get the sense that you are asking for more restrictions, but considering the country's economy, does it appear to you as though government has actually the appetite to tighten the restrictions which already exist?
Well, I think government has a number of advisors who look at various aspects of the economy to see what can be done and what cannot be done. Okay. I don't think lockdown is where we have to go to. I wouldn't support that because it has not worked for us. But it is possible to look at many other ways. Markets, transport networks have a grading of the schools to determine thresholds that will cause you to close down schools when possible. Have a look at hotspots where people may not adhere to protocols, maybe in the night, and see how you can impose some marginal levels of curfew. You do something that at least will yield some impact. So I think government has all these other advisors on board that we should be able to move ahead with something if we really want.
But then the state generally has a major challenge when it comes to enforcement of these restrictions. Of what use will it be if, say, these restrictions you talk about are imposed and we are unable to to enforce them?
Well, this will be part of government strategy. I mean, when you roll out a new plan and you know enforcement is an area that has not worked well, you want to step up include some other, whether to use the police, whether to use some other external security forces. And we've done this before. During the lockdown period, if you're in your car, you are arrested. So I think that the security also will have to look at the chains of the activity and to see how they can strengthen this. And I think that, as you have said, if the deaths are increasing, then what we ask ourselves, what is going wrong? People are not adhering, and other people who are adhering may be put at risk. So I think that we should begin to open up options, and not to also say that we are happy that vaccines are coming. So it's also hoping that when these vaccines come and they are administered to the hospitals, we will succeed in reducing the transmission and getting things well for us.
Dr. Michael Owusu there. Thank you so much, Doc. He's a virologist at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research in Tropical Diseases. Well, still to come here on Joy News, our investigations have uncovered that persons suspected to have contracted COVID-19 are being held on the same floor as other patients, including pregnant women.
What is the worst? We receive normal cases in the east. Is where we have the suspected cases. It is very dangerous. But what can we say?
Also coming up, are you ready to pay high road tolls for better roads?
I don't think it's right for him to increase because we still have potholes on these routes.
What will the increase add to the existing road? Add any figures to it as to how much it's going to cost us, and then the increase, and then how long will it be? So I think they have to revisit it.
More of that coming up shortly here on Joy News Prime with me, Gifty Andopia. Welcome back. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, Joy News investigations have uncovered persons suspected to have contracted COVID-19 are being held on the same floor as other patients, including pregnant women. This is the VIP ward of the maternity block at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital here in Accra. The reason is simple. Like other hospitals, the places designated for COVID cases are full. Staff won't go on record, but told us they wear the same protective clothing to ward inspections, including the ward with the suspected COVID cases. Joy News' Kwete Nate reports.
Hospital records show that on the 8th of February 2021, doctors were treating a patient suspected to have contracted COVID-19. The patient was also showing symptoms of fever, difficulty in breathing, and coughing. Clinical notes on another patient with suspected case on admission also read, and I quote, SARS-CoV-2 test to be done. Focal person contacted. He reports they have run out of logistics currently to restock as they take samples as soon as possible. End quote. Another patient with similar COVID-19 symptoms was also admitted into the ward on the 9th of February 2021. On the 5th of February 2021, another patient with symptoms such as severe anemia and pneumonia was also admitted in the same ward. Some staff of the maternity block who spoke to Joy News under condition of anonymity said the patients were on oxygen when they were brought in.
Well, some came in on oxygen, but now they're a bit better. Oxygen has been discontinued. So currently, their conditions are not so bad that we say, oh, for this patient you're going to use hair. No. But the only problem is we are still waiting for their results.
When Joy News visited the ward, we observed that the VIP ward has been divided into two. Patients with suspected cases of COVID-19 are treated at one wing, while the regular ones are at the other end. The staff described this as extremely risky to the patients.
One side, which is the worst, we receive normal cases. In the east is where we have the suspected cases. It is very dangerous. But what can we say?
Hospital staff tell Joy News what's more dangerous is that they use one protective clothing for all clinical inspections. This is because of inadequate PPE at the maternity block.
The PPEs are not enough, so we are trying to manage. We are just trying to manage, but under normal circumstance, as soon as you enter any room, you should discard whatever you are wearing from head to toe. But when you enter one room, you move to another room with the same PPE.
The staff tell Joy News they have started taking COVID-19 medication in order to protect themselves as well as their families from contracting the virus.
I'm already on the medications, some of the medications, and I started treating my kids as well. The whole family, they are on it.
They confirmed to us that transferring such cases to the maternity is because the holding bay for isolation is full.
My concern is, at least, they should make us know if really they are using the floor, maternity set floor, as a holding bay. Well, prepare our minds psychologically. Also, if we are we need training. Training has to be given to us. Under normal circumstances, those caring for the COVID patient, they all undergo special training. And those of us on the floor, we don't have that training. So how are we going to cater for the patients, even if we have PPEs? It can never be done. So I think we need training to cater well for our patients. They are our patients. For that one, we can never say, yeah, we need to take care of them.
Head of Public Relations at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Mustafa Salifu, has however denied the claims that COVID-19 and non-COVID patients are being kept in the same ward. According to him, they're holding base take one suspected case at a time to prevent the spread of the virus. On claims of inadequate PPEs, Mr. Salifu said the hospital has enough for both staff and patients. Kwetinatis report for Joy News.
In the meantime, the PRO for the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Mustafa Salifu, is denying claims that suspected COVID-19 patients are being kept on the same floor as other patients. According to him, the patients are rather kept in different rooms. He spoke to me earlier today on the Pulse.
In the first place, we want to state categorical that we are not mixing suspected COVID cases with the negative cases. What is happening is that with the recent surge in numbers of COVID cases, the hospital management decided to use the VIP ward, that is the maternity first floor, to a part of it to hold patients. This is a ward that has individual private rooms with all facilities in there. So the hospital was totally surprised when it was reported that we are mixing suspected COVID cases with non-COVID cases.
So
that is totally untrue.
When you say that the report is totally untrue, then it is inaccurate, because it doesn't say that the people are the people are being kept in one room. It says the people are being kept on the same floor. So that is not untrue.
What I mean by that is that the rooms, first of all, are individual separate rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And no one patient stays in the same room with another patient. And then secondly, the ward is a big ward. We have two wings to the ward. That is the east wing and then the west wing.
Okay.
The east wing is what we are using to hold these suspected COVID cases. Mind you, they are suspected COVID cases. And what has happened is that so far, all the people who have sent into this holding area, all their test results have returned negative.
Well, Mustafa further states that the current arrangement does not pose any significant threat to patients. Aren't there movements? And I appreciate that this would be a west wing and a right wing, but wouldn't there be interactions between these people in terms of movement? So one patient is moving from one side of the ward or the block to the other. Isn't that something that happens as well, which then puts people in danger of being infected if there are COVID patients on the other side, assuming that these people are positive?
The danger is very, very minimal, if there is any at all. What is happening is that the East Wing has all the facilities that a patient would need, and there wouldn't be the need for the patient to cross to the West Wing. So it is rare for somebody for a patient to move from the East Wing to the West Wing. I don't know for whatever reason because these are separate individual rooms that patients are in, and then if for whatever reason they want to go out, we have all the facilities at the East Wing that will take care of all their needs. And there are also staff on standby that will help them, so that there wouldn't be the possibility of them crossing to the other side for whatever reason to interact with any other person or patient at the West Wing.
Mustafa Salifu there, he speaks for the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, speaking to me earlier on the Pulse. This is Joy News Prime. We're taking a break. When we return, we do business. Coming up in business, government is making progress with moves to lift the ban on unemployment to the Gulf state. We'll be hearing from the Employment Minister designate.
Hello there, welcome to Business. I'm Charles Aite. The Minister Designate for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafoewa, has submitted a roadmap to Cabinet towards the lifting of a temporary ban on the employment of agencies to the Gulf countries. Government in 2018 placed a ban due to reported cases of abuse on some Ghanaians and illegal migration by prospective job seekers. Answering questions on the situation during his vetting process, the Minister-designate disclosed that the ministry has put in place measures to enroll a training program for beneficiaries before lifting this ban.
Migration has been part of humanity. If you read the good book, it will tell you that at a point in time, Israelites had to leave Egypt to go and live in the promised land. And if you look at the development history of every country, especially even in the world, the West, America, had its development when many persons migrated from Europe to go and settle there, and when our ancestors were also moved from here as slaves to go and work there. So migration has been part of us. But what society hates is migration, one that is under compulsion, and migration which does not recognize the rights of the person. Ghana as a country is interested in the welfare of its citizens, be they working in Ghana or abroad. What we noticed was that there were a lot of innocent Ghanaians that were transported to some parts of the world, especially within the Gulf states. The Gulf had a peculiar labor arrangement that we call the Khalifa system. What they do is that they invite you, you come and live with them in their homes, you work for them, the hours of work are not stipulated, your passport sometimes is taken away, your telephone sometimes is also taken away, so you have no means of communicating with the outside world. Sometimes even your monthly stipend is not given to you, it is saved and given to you only at a time when you are exiting. As a result, on daily basis, we had cases of Ghanaians suffering, constantly making calls to, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, calling on them to come and rescue them and what have you. So what we did was to place a temporary ban on export to the Gulf states, especially those who are going to work in the domestic Department of Work, and then those who are going to live with their employees. Ever since, we have engaged most of the recipient countries and have developed bilateral agreement with them. Hitherto, we were not even having our own domestic labor legislation. Last year, we succeeded in getting this same house approved for us a legislation to cover domestic work. So now we have a benchmark that we use in negotiating with sister countries or recipient countries. Besides that, we have also put in place a system whereby the will-be migrants will also be trained.
Well, let's stay a little longer on the Minister-designate for Employment and Labour Relations, because he's also disclosed that government has created about 3 million jobs as at the end of 2020.
Thank you, Robert. If you indulge me, I will first make an attempt to answer the first point that you made. A report on jobs that Panting for Food and Jobs have created, but you agree with me that Panting for Food and Jobs is not a product under my sector, but I do report on that. So the fact that I report on NAPCO does not mean that I'm the minister responsible for management of activities of NAPCO. But on the number of jobs, yes, it is true. On 1st May 2018, I indicated that the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had created approximately 1 million jobs. And even though I don't have the exact figures for end of 2020, the last time we reported on was in September 2020, and then the figure was around 3 million jobs. 3 million jobs. Honorable Chair, I will make the details available to the committee when I get back to you. But I think that I have, on a number of occasions, even come to this House and have given these figures out already. But if still it is the pleasure of the committee to have the details, I'm more than willing to.
And Chairman, another clarification: the 3 million jobs, public sector or private sector, or a combination of the two?
Combination of all.
And that's it by way of business. I'm Charles Ayete. Sports is up next.
Thank you for staying with us on Joy News Prime. Gary Al Smith here with the sport. And in the developing story from this morning, the supporters of Heart of Oak stormed the club secretariat in protest at recent happenings at the club. And they say they are not happy with the way management is handling things and generally the position of the club in the Ghana Premier League, among other things. Haruna Mubarak has the rest of the story.
The uproar was palpable at the club secretariat in Accra. The supporters were in their rainbow colors with red cloth tied around their foreheads and wrists. Even the security personnel was not exempted. It was believed at the start of the season that the current campaign will bring an end to the Phobians' 11-year wait for a league title. Despite a poor start to the season, the appointment of Serbian coach Kosta Papic instilled optimism amongst the Hearts fraternity as the club catapulted into the second place in January after a string of impressive performances. However, a dismal run of form which has led to the resignation of coach Papic, his assistant Bediako Asare and goalkeepers trainer Ben Owu has rapidly altered the optimism to pessimism. Hearts now find themselves outside the top 10 and are closer to the bottom than the top of the league in terms of points accumulated. It has been speculated that the influence of the board members in the selection of players for games is the bane of the club. The supporters at the secretariat blocked staff from going into their offices while making serious demands, which they expect the leadership to address immediately.
We are therefore requesting, and our statement goes to the board, chairman specifically, and the board of Accra Hearts of Oak. We say demand for a roundtable discussion with board of directors. Kindly accept our warm compliments. Kindly find attached the following demands. The National Chapters Committee on behalf of supporters and other organs, i.e. as ladies, AHUPA, is calling for the immediate reconstitution of the club's board of directors to make accommodation for stakeholder and minority shareholders and holding of the long overdue annual general meeting. The NCC demands an immediate appointment, and I want to reiterate that immediate appointment of a CEO, first team local coach. Please underline, we say local coach. We don't want a foreign coach. Yes. Please, media, underline local coach. The NCC, on behalf of the supporters, is demanding a first team local coach.
In the meantime, the team will now be handled by Samuel Ninoy, the current under-15 coach of the club, until a new head coach is appointed.
There are two sides to the story. Heart of Oak board of directors quickly responded to the problems and the urging of the fans. Nyahota Maklo spoke at a press briefing today in order to resolve and said he will deal with the issues regarding Kosta Papic and everything else.
The board wishes to inform all supporters and especially shareholders, that all arrangements are far advanced to hold an annual general meeting in June, where issues such as reconstitution of the board will be addressed. Shareholders are therefore being advised to take note and make sure they attend and participate in the decision-making process. The board also wishes to inform supporters that it intends to make a rights issue of shares immediately after the AGM to enable those holding shares buy more shares and also new investors to buy. We would therefore appeal to our supporters and the general public to remain calm while we try to get replacements for the head coach and the goalkeepers trainer immediately. Whilst we also undertake a general review of the club arising out of findings we have made in the wake of these recent happenings.
There's more on that, and you can go on to myjoyonline.com. At the same briefing, he outlined the official reasons why Costa Papic said he's leaving the club. He gave 5 reasons, and then he also said that those reasons were put to the players who mostly rebuffed Costa Papic and denied the reasons the Serbian coach gave. You can find all those on myjoyonline.com. But that's the sport for the moment. I'm Gary Alsmith. Thank you for your time.
And we're back, but Becky's here with Showbiz. Becky.
Hello to you, Bone Straight lady. That's a very expensive.
How are you welcoming me?
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, you need to put the record straight that you're wearing a Bone Straight.
Anyway, let's talk about the Ghana music industry. Yeah, let's talk about the Ghana music industry.
Yeah, give to you, the Ghana music is actually the Ghana music industry. Easy, remember Easy?
I do remember her.
Yeah, Easy.
Ghana's Beyonce.
Oh, well, I'm not too sure.
Oh.
Hajia for real is taking over, so I'm not too sure.
I see.
But Easy is saying that she doesn't think that the Ghanaian music industry is growing. It's like, stop.
It's not growing for her.
Well, that's what she thinks.
Okay.
So she's been explaining in this interview.
Beyonce, she dances very well. Easy.
Oh yeah, she does. Like,
yeah. But she makes a very good point about the royalty system in Ghana.
Everyone, all the musicians, or almost all the musicians are talking about the royalty system in Ghana, and we're hoping that something will be done about this. But Gifty, let me introduce you to and our viewers to Adelaide the Seer.
Okay.
She is visually impaired. She's been discovered by Dope Nation, the music duo, and she's been telling her story how she wants to inspire people with her music. So we have to support Adelaide this year.
We should.
We'll have her on Zoom.
She should. I mean, this is a very inspiring story, and it's a story that will help us deal with our problems.
And that song is for Jojo. It's his
happy birthday to Jojo, the crazy producer. But thank you, Becky. Thank you so much for coming through. Let's now look at this issue of road toll increases. Some motorists are asking Minister-designate for Roads and Highways, Kwesi Amoakwata, to abandon the idea of increasing road tolls if approved by the appointment committee. They say very little has been done to rehabilitate roads, while others described as insensitive the decision to increase road tolls in the midst of the pandemic. It comes after Mr. Amoakwata insisted increasing the existing road tolls is the surest way to meet the demand for rehabilitation and maintenance to improve infrastructure in Ghana's road sector.
Ghana pays the lowest rate in the whole world. Ghana, we pay the lowest rate in the whole world. So if you want to go...
You say rate in what?
Yes, toll rate.
Oh, okay, the toll rate.
If you want to go OOT or whatever, as we see in other parts of the world, the research that has been done in my ministry on the average
toll rate is around $1. And Ghana, $1 is close to 6 cedis. But here, people pay 50 pesos for toll rate. And if I am giving the approval, is one of the things I'm going to do immediately. And it has to go to cabinet first, proposal of increasing the toll rate, and it will come to this honorable house. And I believe all of you, everybody here will support it. And Ghanaians will also accept it, because it's like the parallel of the egg and the chicken. Which one should come first? Are people prepared to pay more to get good roads, or they should get good roads before they pay? Because I remember the last time, I can't say the exact, the last time toll rates were increased, I think it was during the time of NDC. There was so much hue and cry in this country, from raising from 50 pesos to 1 cedi. We also know what happened in Ghana. Drivers were saying they will go on strike and all that. So will Ghanaians be prepared to pay more for toll rate, as we are seeing in other parts of the world? We pay the lowest rate in the whole world.
Well, he asked the question, are Ghanaians willing to pay more for the toll? Benjamin Akakbo has been speaking to some of you at the Tema toll booth.
Actually, looking at the condition of the economy as of now, I think it should be maintained. Let's keep it like that for some time, and let's see how things goes.
I don't think it's right for him to increase, because we still have potholes on these routes that every time you have to swerve, and probably you might even hit a pedestrian who's walking or who is crossing. Yes.
All right. So for you, there's no reason to increase it?
No, there's no reason, because we have to see an improvement on the route before he has to increase there.
What will the increase add to the existing road?
He is saying it will help in rehabilitation and maybe the construction of new roads.
Have they added any figures to it as to how much it's going to cost us, and then the increase, and then how long will it be? So I think they have to revisit it.
All right. All of them saying they don't want any increase in the tolls. And in fact, the very last person I interacted with said that he is not even seeing, the last two people I spoke to, they are saying they don't even see what the sums collected here are used for. And so for what reason would they have to pay more?
Benjamin Akakbo there. Now, being a mother of a child with disability can be a burden. But what happens when that mother or caregiver is also suffering from a chronic medical condition and needs special care, even much more than the child? In the following report, Joy News' Beryl Ernestina Richter tells the sad story of a 40-year-old Georgina Yawa Ankra, whose life is fading away due to diabetes.
My name is Georgina Yawa Ankra. I have 2 children. The last born is 12 years, but I have forgotten the age of the older one. My mother and brothers stayed here with me. They are all dead.
That is Georgina Yawa Ankra struggling to tell me about herself. She lives in one of the poor, densely populated communities in Dome in the Greater Accra region. Yawa claims she was diagnosed with diabetes many years ago. She looks much older than her actual age, her hair falling off strain after strain, every layer of her skin saggy and riddled with wrinkles. The frail-looking woman is unable to do anything for herself. Almost every day, she drags herself to the street to beg for alms.
This is the room Yawa sleeps in. She shares this same room with her teenage daughter, Nyonyo. This room is filled with lots of things, from clothes packed in bags, bowls, basins, which looks untidy, and even cobwebs. Days when her daughter is not around, it means Yawa has to drag herself on her buttocks to even pick something from the chair or the floor. This is the life Yawa and her daughter have been confronted with for the past 9 years. A life of misery, a life of abject poverty.
Life has been tough for Yawa. Money to access treatment for her condition has been a challenge. She has almost no teeth in her mouth. Her tongue weakened with pain that muffles her speech. Yawa has been battered by poverty, and even more so where she lays her head to rest from life's troubles is in a sorry state. Dust, cobwebs, and thick filth have enveloped the room. She appears to have been cut off from her family because of her condition. Grace Damashi is her neighbor who has been here long enough to witness the suffering of the 40-year-old.
Diabetes. I heard her condition is diabetes, and this has made her crippled. She drags herself to the streets to beg for alms. She was a very beautiful lady and very hardworking, who was also very neat. We, her neighbors, sometimes provide support to her. She does everything in her room, cooks, urinates, and even defecates there.
Yawa's woes have deepened because her second daughter, Nyonyo, lives with Down syndrome. She is unable to provide and care for her teenage daughter because of her helpless state.
The friend was saying,
okay.
What is he saying? 6 years.
Yes.
For a long time, Nyonyo was miserable, lonely, and always looked dirty till a teacher in the neighborhood found her roaming on a school compound.
The first time I saw her, she didn't know how to bath. So for the first year, I was bathing for her every day. But now, when she comes and I'm in class, she would go for the bucket, fetch the water, and then bath for herself. Sometimes, if she's very dirty, then she cannot do it on her own, but she tries. For now, she knows I have to take bucket. She knows where she takes her bath every day. She knows.
The 3 weeks that Greater Accra was placed under lockdown in 2020 to help contain COVID-19 pandemic were the most difficult days of her life.
Because it was a lockdown, I was not visiting. But periodically, I call teachers who live around Domi to check on her for me.
Gloria Sari is a special education officer with the DOM circuit. According to her, Nyonyo's consistent and kempt appearance to school aroused the curiosity of the teachers to trace the whereabouts of the parents.
We met her one day on the school compound. Lots of children gathered around her, making fun of her. That is how come we came home and found the mother bedridden. Then at least she could see, she was telling us she was hungry. It was pathetic that day to come and meet someone in a dirty environment, excuse me to say, not being able to do anything for herself, and she telling us not to take the girl away from her because she's the one who takes care of her. It was pathetic. Since she's a girl child, and the way she is, once she's full and she gets anywhere that is shady, she lies down, she's off. And any rascal can do anything to her. That is our fears. But once she's in the community, we believe the social welfare will have to come in to help her.
All her dreams seemed to be slipping away by the day, and so is life itself. Every day is a painful endurance, and the thought that she may not enjoy a future with her daughter depresses her.
I want God to help me take care of my children before I die. I need help to walk.
A desperate cry to be lifted out of this misery. For now, only time will tell if Yawa's situation would get better so she and her daughter Nyonyo can live fulfilling lives. Beryl Ernestina Richter's report for Joy News.
We're happy to take your help for Yawa. If you're tasked to support, you can get in touch with the news team or the producer of this report, Beryl Ernestina Richter. That's the number there, 0248 196 357. That's 0248 196 357. Let's get on Zoom and have a very quick discussion with Dr. Ernest York. He's a consultant physician and endocrinologist, I beg your pardon, at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. He's also a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School. Doc, thank you very much. For Georgina Yawahu's story we just watched, what do you think are the best and sustainable ways to support someone who is medically in this medical position? Where do we start from?
Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers. And as I listen to her, the story as it's told, it's just that of a heartbreak. And for us in the medical field, and if you practice for that long, it's not an unfamiliar story. We come across such stories, periodically, and a lot of the time, because the system is not set up to deal with such cases in a manner that is desirable with the health workers, sometimes take our hands out in our pockets and then try and support these people. Yes, we invite the social welfare from time to time, or if there's any institutional support that's available, we call on such support, but it's always woefully inadequate. And I remember I lead my team, and when we are doing rounds, sometimes I will say, hey, sorry, you've been a long time since you've been to church, and this is the time to show love to somebody so that God will also have some empathy or sympathy.
And by showing love,
it's a familiar story.
Yeah, by showing love, back to the question, which is, what will be the next action to take medically to help her? Assuming someone is willing to pay for that, what will be the steps to take?
I mean, we are told that she has diabetes.
Yeah.
We need to ascertain that. It may be true, may not be true. Looking at her physically, she's somebody who looks chronically unwell. We are told that she's 40 years. If that is true, then she looks far older than how she ought to look ordinarily. She looks lost weight, she's darkened and all. And they could be a sign of poor diabetes control, I must confess. However, diabetes alone is not the only possible cause of such, looks or severe weight loss. Cancers, certain severe infections like tuberculosis and all of that. So the first step will be that some form of thorough medical examination needs to be done to ascertain the veracity of the truth, whether it's indeed TB, diabetes or not. But beyond that, she would, if it's confirmed, what it means that it's poorly controlled. Poorly controlled diabetes will lead to breakdown of the muscle and tissues of the body, because the chemical that builds up the tissue, one of them is insulin, which is deficient or doesn't work well in diabetes, and that must be catered for, either using drugs that she will swallow or she would inject in the insulin. So the first step is to establish that, do a thorough medical checkup, and then take it from there.
Right. Dr. York, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Ernest York is a consultant physician and endocrinologist at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Now, the Kumawu Government Polyclinic in the Setro Kumawu district has suspended surgeries and other services after a rainstorm ripped part of its roofing. The male ward, which was affected, has been closed down, forcing patients to join the women and children in their wards. The medical store and pharmacy are among essential service delivery points affected by the rainstorm. Nanaya Ojima has more in this report.
Wet equipment, medical supplies, records books and other essential records are being dried in the sun. Tents are raised to augment service delivery at parts of the facility spared by the storm. Outpatient services, dispensary and other services are rendered under the tents. Patients will have to sit under these tents in wait of healthcare delivery. Relevant services like cesarean sections, though critical, are now suspended. Medical Superintendent Dr. Alex Agbanu is disturbed.
From now onwards, we are unable to render certain services, like even emergency cesarean sections and all that. We can't do it because the theatre is affected. Generally, you see that what has happened has affected most of the parts that we use to render service, like the consulting room, the OPD, that is the first point of call, our pharmacy units, our dispensary, records, emergency. Almost every area has been affected, including theatre.
The facility is a referral center for many health facilities in the catchment area. Now, patient referrals are sent to Efidiase Government Hospital, which is far to reach. Director of Health Services, Lawrence Adinku, explains impact of the problem on the district.
We have the emergency ward, the male ward, all ripped off. So for now, we are keeping all the patients we have in these wards in a common ward where we keep the females and then the PDs. And now that this place, there's a problem. We've communicated to the other facilities that this is the situation we have at hand. Now, if there are some cases which needs immediate emergency, then you either refer them to either Agogo or Efidiase. Those that we can deal with here, in spite of all these circumstances, then definitely for them we can receive them here and then address that or deal with them. But other than that, then they will be asked to go to Efidiase and Agogo for the time being as we work around to get this problem resolved.
For effective healthcare delivery, the hospital is running a paperless system which has been beneficial so far. Following the rainstorm, the computers that have become essential part of healthcare delivery are defective, forcing administrators to revert to the old system, which has its own defects. Dr. Agbanu explains the hospital's financial standings is unable to afford new computers.
Yes, so currently everything we do, including our claims management, is based on the system. So, in fact, without the system, then it's going to be very difficult, as you mentioned. What it means that we have to go back to the old system, which will also be very difficult because a lot of the information about patient now, we don't have them in physical folders, they are in the system. And so that is the challenge for management. And then we are looking at how best to address that. It's not like the system, the software is damaged, it's the computers. Once we get the computers, we will be able to restore normal service.
Meanwhile, the district chief executive, Samuel Ade Ajekum, says the assembly will repair the roofing as soon as possible. He says the extent of damage has already been assessed. So here are some of the few things the hospital administrators could salvage after the rainstorm took part of the roofing of this hospital away. And most of their things are now destroyed completely by the rain. Hospital administrators say they will need public support to procure some of the things they've lost, especially their computers. Nanaya Ochima, reporting.
Nanaya Ojima's reports there. Now, green at a traffic intersection does not always mean go, as learned in the popular nursery rhyme. This is because a green at a malfunctioning traffic light could mean green for vehicles moving in all directions, as has been happening at the traffic intersection near Joy FM. The malfunction, which is yet to be resolved days after it was first reported, is creating chaos and closed shifts, which residents and road users say could soon result in an actual crash. Judith Awachitanda, who first reported on the malfunctioning Sadisco traffic light, has returned to the spot.
It's yet another day here at the Sadisco junction in Kokomlemle. I was here 2 weeks ago to report on the non-functioning traffic lights in this area. And looking behind me, it's evident that the situation has not changed. One interesting thing to note about this road is that while some traffic lights are non-functioning, others are functioning quite well. This causes drivers to maneuver for right of way on this road, and most of the time they often clash in the middle of the road. Drivers and regular users of this road are still at high risk of accidents.
Accidents within the past 2 weeks have increased, and so have the frustrations of the people.
Accident
the accidents that occur here beat my imagination. Within just 15 minutes, 3 accidents can occur. One works, one doesn't. And that's what is dangerous, because they give conflicting instructions. A man living in that house right there suffered a terrible accident and broke his legs. When my children are going to school, I get very disturbed.
It's
like, especially this traffic light is dangerous. It's like a T-junction. So mostly even we do fight with the drivers. So imagine if you are coming, he will tell you that this line, you can see from this and this, it doesn't show, but only this. So when he's crossing, recently, it seems like 2 weeks or 3 weeks like this, he hit even a policeman. And recently, those, the prison service, when they are walking, they deal with protocol. So they don't stay traffic lights. So they do the same thing. They nearly even get accidents here. We have an MP here. His office is just closer here, Herring. But still, this light, they are not working towards it.
Until the lights are fixed, it probably may make sense to shut down the lights entirely, as motorists are better off approaching a traffic light that does not work with caution than a traffic light that will only mislead them into crashing into each other. Judith Awotretando for Joy News.
It's in the afternoon. If you get to this intersection, you have to be careful while we wait for the problem to be solved. Now, the murder of a 39-year-old mechanic at Kpagri Estates in the Wa municipality of the Upper West region has left his neighbors concerned about their security. Kojo Kunta, who was found dead early Tuesday, is believed to have been murdered. It's the third such killing in the community in 3 months, and residents want the police to step up patrols to prevent any more. Joy News' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Wa.
Residents of Kpagri in the Wa municipality woke up this morning to see a man who is believed to be in his 30s lying supine in their community. The deceased was later identified as Kojo Kunta and better known as Ojam by close friends and relatives. He is a mechanic and a resident in the community. He was found dead by passers-by with his boxer pant pulled to the knees. Both hands were tied and placed at his back. Upper West Region's Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Police Service, Chief Inspector Gideon Boateng Fede explained.
Yeah, the body was examined by police at the local Cinco, and we had bruises at the back and then other part of the body. So police have removed the body to the Wa Municipal Hospital for autopsy and other things to be done.
Residents of Kpagri Estate have expressed shock about the incident. Bismarck Yiriyo knows the disease too well because they live closer to each other.
He's the type that is so sober. He likes playing and very jovial. We call him Ojam. So mostly when you can see him around sports. And he's a type, he doesn't like argument. So I suspect a foul play, and looking at the way they've unnicked his shorts, I'm not happy.
This is not the first time that an incident like this happened in the community. In fact, it is the third time in as many months. As a result of the incident, the residents are telling us that they are now living in fear and they want the police to come to their aid. This is the third time that it has happened, and we have no idea of how the deaths came about. So we are living in fear. If it's not investigated, one could be killed even sleeping in your bedroom. So the authorities should please help us.
Especially there is a bad spot at the top here. If you check, robbery has been occurring there too rampant. At least every 2 to 3 months, we hear of robbery case, people being killed and dumped and all those things. But we don't hear of any information again from the police. So I think they should do well to monitor the area
Currently at the family house of the late Ojam, where family members are right here. They are in a state of mourning. I will try to speak to some of the people who know him, and then what was he up to.
Speaking with beads of tears all over her face and cheeks, stepmother of Ojam, Nimfaju Helen, stated that Ojam started behaving strangely last night.
He was shouting on top of his voice that there were some people wearing white down that were after him to kill. We made one Muhammad to lock him inside his room, but after we opened him, this morning around 5 a.m., he walked past me. I informed my husband that Ojam was out again.
Well, speaking of police taking action, several stories of armed robbery have inundated news headlines since January this year, with many of them being recorded in the northern part of Ghana. Inspector General of Police James Opombueno is in the Upper East region today as part of efforts to deal with the situation, which has even pushed tomato traders to go on strike after they alleged a number of their counterparts have been shot by armed robbers. Recent robbery attacks, specifically at Pualugu, Katiu, Sandema, and parts of the Bongo district, as well as Bolgatanga, have left many citizens living in fear, and some recently calling for the regional police commander to be transferred. Inspector General of Police James Opombueno has had cause to send special anti-robbery teams just last week to that region to beef up police operations, while the IGP has been there today interacting with his team on the ground who are supposed to be dealing with the problem of armed robbery there.
After we have escorted them, we return back to meet those who are also returning. It was after they are on the way going that we heard that something is happening here. They had blocked this road. And were robbing people. So when they received information and came, they were nowhere to be found. But the other one which happened was Friday. Sandema Chana Road is a twin road. Right goes straight into Chana Township. Yes, sir. The right goes straight into Chana Township, and the left goes beyond Chana, which is KBTH. So we received information. It coincided with Fumbisi Market. Chana have their market on Fridays, and then Fumbisi rotate every 6 days. Yes, no, every 6 days. So on that day, it coincided with Fumbisi, and the vehicle went to Fumbisi, escorted the market, remained back. It was after they have escorted them back that they received the information that they were being robbed and proceeded to the place. But met no one there. So the one who was dead was rather on the train road, the left one, that leads to K2. And it was after the day of incident that they found the body there.
As the IGP taking a briefing on what happened with the recent robbery, he's been speaking to our correspondent in the Upper East region, Abesoi.
They have put some measures in place to stem the tide or to prevent the robberies and other crimes from occurring. I will sit down with them again, and then we'll review those plans, and then we'll see what assistance we can give them to ensure that the crimes do not occur again. I can assure the general public that we're doing whatever we can, and we'll go to whatever length to ensure that the public is made safe.
Well, if you live in that part of town, here's some assurance for you. Let's see how it goes. And Charles Aite is standing by with business.
And it's time for business. I'm Charles Aite. Ghana's weak downstream sector ranks the country 5th out of 19 sub-Saharan African countries, according to Fitch Solutions Downstream Oil and Gas Risk Reward Index. Now, the nation is also ranked 57th globally out of 92 nations, as its petroleum hub development project has been described as over-ambitious. We have more in this report.
Although the country scored slightly higher than the regional average, its limited refining capacity and low utilization rates alongside its underdeveloped regulatory framework makes it an unattractive area for private investment. However, if the necessary funding for the petroleum hub development can be obtained, the project offers significant advantage to Ghana's risk-reward index position and the future of its downstream sector. In October last year, year, Parliament passed the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation Bill, which seeks to establish the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation and subsequently fuel the growth of the country's downstream sector. The integrated petroleum hub that will be built in Bonyere in the western region will be constructed in 3 phases and is expected to be completed by 2030. It is proposed to incorporate 4 refineries, crude oil storage tanks, and 2 petrochemical plants. But Fitch Solutions considers the project as a high risk given the existing dynamics across the nation's downstream sector, citing the TURMOIL refinery as an example. A weakness in its limited projected growth is demand of its refined fuels. Nonetheless, the Energy Ministry expects the 3-phase project to attract total investment of about $60 billion, with $12 billion needed to fund the first phase. Each refinery is expected to cost $5.4 billion, and the first phase is expected to construct 350,000 barrels of oil per day of refinery capacity.
Now, non-resident investors held 25.5 billion cedis of Ghana's total domestic debt at the end of the third quarter of 2020. Now, this represented 18.9% of the entire domestic debt. But rising domestic debt is due to banks increasing investment in government bonds and treasury bills. Here's Charles Nexon-Yeboah's report, read to you.
This actually is compared to about 25.6 billion cedis in the corresponding period of 2019, representing 26.2% of the share of domestic debt. There had been fears that a rising share of foreign investment in the country's domestic debt may not be a good idea, particularly in situations of global economic uncertainties. The non-resident investors could easily liquidate their funds, and that can put pressure on the cedi. Importantly, the Bank of Ghana's holding of domestic debt at the end of the third quarter of last year stood at a little above 31 billion cedis. This represents 23.1% of the total domestic debt. However, banks and other financial institutions held about 38 billion cedis of the local debt, representing about 28.2% of the total domestic debt. Indeed, they had increased their share by a little above 7 billion cedis in the third quarter of last year. This suggests that the financial intermediaries shored up their investment in government securities, particularly treasury bills, which are risk-free assets or carry no risk. SNIT's holding was about 395 million cedis, which is 0.3% of total domestic debt. Ghana's total domestic debt stood at 286 billion cedis at the end of November last year, with the domestic component at about 147 billion cedis, a little higher than the external debt component.
Now, private organizations are being urged to renew their commitment to supporting the fight against COVID-19 following the emergence of a new variant claiming more lives than before. Speaking to Joy Business, the Public Relations Officer at Ghana, Bennett Otu, says that there is a need for the private sector to come up to the aid of the poor and vulnerable in society by providing them with some protective equipment. Here's more.
Since the emergence of the new COVID-19 variant, deaths recorded in the country have now crossed the 500 mark, and this has questioned government's efforts in dealing with the situation. According to the Public Relations Officer at Ghana, Bennett Otu, the private sector needs to extend more support, especially to the less privileged in society.
Truth of the matter is that it's a big task, and no matter the number of boxes of masks or the number of sanitizers that you donate or you give out, there's still the need for a lot more, because I mean sanitizers are needed in large quantities, masks are disposable, most of them we need to change them every day. So all of us need to come on board, individuals, corporate entities. Even if you have 10 boxes, you can go out there on the streets and give to people. Giving out that box of masks or sanitizers to someone out there is saving your own life.
Mr. Otu spoke to Joy Business at an event organized by his outfit to distribute free face masks and sanitizers at some parts of the capital, including the Kwame Nkrumah Circle.
In the COVID era, safety is very important to everybody, and if I decide to show love to you, then I might as well be sure that you are keeping safe and you are safe. So because of that, we as a company decided that today let's go on the streets to generally sensitize people about COVID-19, how to stay safe, all the protocols, and to gift them with a few sanitizers and masks, and just show our love to them, because a lot of these people that we give them masks and sanitizers to are people that typically will not be able to afford these items.
On his part, Chief Operations Officer at Jumia Ghana, Lionel Moby, says the pandemic has led to a significant increase in orders and patronage of e-commerce businesses.
It is contactless delivery. What is contactless delivery? It means that the driver will, our hider will come to your home with your package, and we are going to deliver it without you having a physical interaction with the hider. We notice a strong adoption of online businesses. It might not be quantified in terms of financial, but in terms of orders, in terms of number of customers that we are acquiring, we see that we have a strong trend of increasing customer that is there since the breakout, and our mission is to make sure that we continue go aside this. So for the exact figures company-wise, you will have them opportunity to have to see them some days ahead.
The Jumia Ghana kind gesture was on the hashtag Jumia Loves Love.
Well, on a much lighter note, barely a week into her historic appointment as the first African and woman to head the World Trade Organization, social media has been celebrating Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala with a trending hashtag #BeLikeNgozi challenge. Of course, here's more. On Monday, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was officially appointed as WTO's Director General, making her the first woman and the first African to lead the WTO, with her term set to begin on the 1st of March 2021. Following the appointment of Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the Director General of the WTO, many have taken to their social media pages to celebrate the big win. All that has to be done to join in on the hashtag #BeLikeNgozi challenge is to dress like Ngozi with his signature head tie, ankara, as well as her glasses. The results so far are so inspiring and beautiful to see. These are some social media reactions to this challenge, as many of them have waged a simple campaign, not just to congratulate her, but as well draw home the need for girl-child education and the power, limitless power of women across the world to take up positions they so wish. For Dr. Ngozi, her priority as WTO chief will be fair trade between the global north and south.
There's the need to modernize the rules of the WTO and bring them up to 21st century issues. What do I mean by that? We have to look at the digital economy, which has become so prominent during this pandemic. E-commerce is key and is going to grow in leaps and bounds as we move on. How do WTO does not presently have rules that underpin e-commerce? So how to put those rules in place, complete the negotiations, will be very, very important.
I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business. That's how we end business. Sports is up next.
Thank you for staying with us on Joy News Prime. Gary Al-Smith with the second batch of the sport news. In the under-20 AFCON, Cameroon have secured a quarter-final qualification after beating Uganda by a goal to nil. So as you may know, the Under-20 AFCON has been expanded from 8 to 12 teams for the first time. So this is Group A. Let's look at what it means in terms of the standings. Now, Cameroon, of course, played one match already, so they have 6 points after getting 2 wins in 2. Uganda have 3 points. Mauritania and Mozambique are currently playing. Mauritania are leading by 2-0. Mauritania, of course, are the host nation. In the Australian Open, it's where all the action is happening, really. Rafael Nadal was supposed to be cruising to yet another step to get a 21st Grand Slam title. Well, it ended as Greek fifth seed Stefanos Tsitsipas fought back from 2 sets down to reach the Aussie Open semi-finals. The Spanish second seed is 34. That's Nadal, of course. He was stunned as Tsitsipas claimed a 3-6, 2-6, 7-6, 6-4, 7-5 victory in Melbourne. And Tsitsipas is 22. He broke out into a huge smile, almost in disbelief, after converting his third and final match point. So, Bukova getting into the semi-final there. Hans Mensah will be here at 10:30 to bring you all the wrap with the Heart of Oak situation, plus some more. And that's the sport for now. I'm Gary Alsmith. Thank you for your time.
And that's it for Joy News Prime. There's more news at myjoyonline.com. And of course, this program is on demand on our YouTube channel. My name is Gifty Amdoapia. Aisha Ibrahim is standing by with PM Express. Do stay tuned.